The reason that is given for celebrating Juneteenth is rooted in revisionist history and inaccurate history. Every time you pick up a newspaper or a magazine, it's the same shameful story. And the story is General Granger arrives in Galveston, Texas, to inform Black people that they were emancipated 1.5 or 2.5 years ago by the Emancipation Proclamation. All right? That's not true. When I tell people this, initially, people cannot believe what I'm saying because we have been inundated by the media in so many forms, even by good people who mean well, but they have taken the okey doke too. All right? Every Juneteenth celebration that happens in America today is being celebrated for the wrong reasons. And that's the gist of my handout that I spoke of. The most important reason Juneteenth should be celebrated for is for the military defeat of the Confederacy. That is the reason why it should be celebrated. Not because General Granger arrives and claims that he told people that y'all got freed 2 or 1.5 years ago by him. No. That's not true. I'm gonna cover 3 historical moments to help you further see how shameful this is. And it's indicative of the whitewash of all of our history. I'm just gonna go to 3. Number 1. I'm sure you've probably seen different movies on Hollywood about the Civil War. And I'm sure you may have seen in one of the many movies that's taken place in the history of America about the Civil War, the surrender of Robert E. Lee at Appomattox, okay? In every movie that shows that moment, all the troops are white folks. All are white. And that's not true. White regiments and Black regiments have surrounded Robert E. Lee at Appomattox. They had him boxed in. The 25th Regiment was all Black. It was led by white commanders, but it's all Black. The 41st or the 42nd Regiment, one of those two, was all Black. They have boxed him in. He's surrounded. He got 2 choices: surrender or die. Now, he decided, I ain't gonna be General Custer. All right? I'm not gonna be that stupid like General Custer was. They got us, guys. They surrendered. Hollywood movie doesn't show that. It shows all the troops are white. It doesn't show the 25th and the 42nd or the 41st were Black. Forced him to surrender. All right. He signs an agreement surrendering. The historians, white historians, always state this marked the end of the Civil War. No, it did not. It marked the ending of the Civil War in the East. The Civil War in the West continued. The 25th Regiment then marched from Virginia to Texas. At my age, I can't even march 3 blocks. All right? They marched from Virginia to Texas. They get to Texas, they join other Black regiments and white regiments who are battling the Confederates. All right? The battle was so intense, they pushed 10,000 troops of the Confederates into Mexico. All right? Which led toward the surrender of General Kirby Smith, Confederate general, to the Union Army on the border of Louisiana and Texas. When he surrendered, that ended the Civil War in the West. And when that ended, the Civil War is over. Okay? 4 days later, General Granger came and announced this statement. I'm here to tell you, y'all are free ever since 2.5 years ago. Well, let's go back 2.5 years ago. Emancipation Proclamation didn't free anyone. The Emancipation Proclamation was a political military tactic by Abraham Lincoln and the Union to persuade the Confederacy to surrender. All right? They didn't surrender. It was a tactic to persuade them to stop rebelling. They didn't. Okay? All right. I tell people all the time, I ask them this question: have you ever read the Emancipation? Most people say, no, I never read it. Go read it. Go get on Google or wherever and get a copy. In fact, we make copies and we give it out to people. Read paragraph 5. When you read paragraph 5, it makes it very clear. This proclamation does not apply to all the parishes in Louisiana. It lists every parish. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to all these other communities around the country. It lists everything. It still don't even apply to those places. Why? Because it only applied to places where the Union soldiers have not captured. Okay? New Orleans has fallen in the Civil War. New Orleans was captured in the Civil War in the spring of 1862. The Union Army did not have orders to emancipate you. They had orders after they conquered this area, much of this area in southern Louisiana. They had orders to go to every white plantation owner and ask him, who are you pledging loyalty to now? Now think about this. You got a gun in your face, okay? And the offer was this: if you pledge loyalty to us, the Union, you can keep your property. Property is not just that house you got, but all your property, your slaves. With me? If you do not pledge loyalty to us, then we're going to seize your property, your house, your land, and your slaves. What do you think most of them white folks did? Where I got to sign? Where I got to sign? Okay. They got a gun. The Confederate Army wasn't here. So they signed, which meant that they kept their slaves. What did the slaves do? The slaves rebelled. Hell no. I want a gun. I want to get with them. All of this put pressure on Lincoln to eventually open the window to let the black troops come in. Who had the greatest motivation to fight? The black troops. They had the greatest desire to fight? The black troops. Now, Lincoln and them would argue, well, we're worried about them. We don't know if they really would fight. They knew damn well that the people, all throughout history, these people who come out of West Point are trained in military history. Now, they're just not trained how to shoot a gun. They're trained in military history. When you study military history, you will study who, in any situation, is more likely, has more reason to fight than anybody. The most oppressed sections have more reason. The middle class people have less, because in a revolutionary struggle, especially if it's successful, sections of the middle class are not going to have that privilege anymore to live the life they live, especially if it was a life of exploitation anyway. You got me? So the war starts. In the spring of 1862, Galveston was bombarded by the Union Navy. You got 1,200 slaves in Galveston at that time. Boom! Boom! Yeah, what's that? The slaves are back off. Oh, Lord, the water started. They got Union ships over there by the Gulf. It's on. It's on. They're talking amongst themselves. Okay? Newspaper that's publishing in Galveston is recording the war has started. Right? The Union made a major invasion. Later, the Confederates do a counteroffensive, repulse the Union. Later, following year 1865, the Union makes another advance and triumphs. My point is, the statement that is published in every newspaper, every magazine, every whatever, it's the same statement. Juneteenth is celebrated because of the statement made by General Granger, who came to Galveston to tell the world, to tell the slaves they were emancipated a year and a half, 2 years ago by the Emancipation Proclamation. BS. The slaves already knew about this because the Union Army launched an offensive in 1862. So they're aware that the war is going on. They're aware of the fight, and they're aware about the emancipation that you said they didn't know about. They knew about. They knew about. Now, the man responsible for correctly working to educate people on the correct history was a brother named Harry Jones. Harry Jones was in the U.S. military, Marine, one of the few blacks in the intelligence department. He was a brilliant man. We lost him several years ago, massive heart attack. He grew up near Tulsa, Oklahoma. This book that he was the second command of the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C. Y'all get a chance, type this word in your toolbox. Harry, H-A-R-I, Jones, and bring him up. This guy was phenomenal. Phenomenal. We brought him here to New Orleans 7 years ago. I had him talk at 3 schools. I'm working you today. I want our people to know about you. He gave a magnificent presentation. We organized a talk at a church, standing room only. The talk was supposed to be 20 minutes. He spoke 1 hour and 25 minutes, and we had to tie it off. Let me tell you what he spoke about. He had done all the work and research. The presentation was Women of African Descent in the Civil War. Everybody in New Orleans know about one woman, Harriet Tubman. That's all we know. This man put a PowerPoint show on the screen of over 25 different black women who were spies, members of what was called the Legal League, organized by Major Delaney. We were like, now this one here, this one worked in the house. She deliberately act like a dummy as she brings the food to the table where the Confederate generals are meeting with their Confederate lieutenants. And they would say stuff like, hey, you talk, oh, don't matter, she's stupid, she don't know what she's talking, she can't hear, oh, okay. She was cleverly trained her ear. So when she went back to the kitchen, she took a pencil, took notes, how they're talking, what their plans are. She's dumb and stupid. She's coming in, picking up the dirty dirt. Master, what you need? Oh, good. She smuggled those notes to the field hand, who smuggled those notes to the Union Army, so that they will know their plans for the next action, so they know how to counter it. This man was explaining all of this. We were like, it was so uplifting. He would tell us, remember when you were growing up, you watched those TV shows like I Spy, Bill Cosby, Robert Culp? Remember that? Remember you watched that show called The A-Train? No, the A-Team? Remember that? Now, that's all Hollywood, right? What do you get out of it? To be a spy, you got to be brilliant. That's what he's teaching. To be a spy, you got to be clever. To be a spy, you got to be on your feet. I mean, he was telling us all the qualities to be a good spy. And we're like, I know you watch all those things on television, but you must think about it. What do you see? The spy is doing the legwork to enable the army, all the police officers, to do cleanup work. And for every young female sitting in that audience, they felt so much pride and energy the way he talked. Because he was telling the audience, particularly the male audience, if it wasn't for these women who played the role as the spies, The Union Army could not have gotten the information they needed to be able to counter the next move by the enemy. You were able to leave that evening with understanding really well the role of counterintelligence, which is what he did for 20 some more years for the U.S. Marines. So we were being lectured by a man who loves history, by a man who's been trying his best to tell and share with the world the real story of black troops, even though he was trained by the enemy to do bad things in many unjust wars that America did. So anyway, I'm saying all to say what? He suffers a massive heart attack. We lose him about 6 years ago. And our little organization decided that he needs to be commemorated. So we have to finish this book. The book is being dedicated to him. I'm the main writer, but that's not important. We want to dedicate it to this man. We have a beautiful picture of him. We got to go to Tulsa, take a picture of the grave and all that stuff. So all that be in the book as a way of honoring someone who really plowed up the correct military history that we should be proud of. It was under his influence that he exposed we're celebrating Juneteenth for the wrong reason. Once you begin to understand all this, you begin to see, damn, I see why the story is about this guy that came and told the story. They don't want you to know. The real story is we should be celebrating because we defeated them. And if we defeated them, but our ancestors defeated them, God damn it, we can defeat them today. All right. So Robert E. Lee part, Juneteenth part, the next part, the third thing. Following the Civil War, black women in particular, in South Carolina, began the practice of honoring the black dead, those who lost their lives in the Civil War. And when they started this, they called it Decoration Day. Decoration Day later became known as Memorial Day. Black people are responsible for Memorial Day. It's going to get hijacked by white folks, okay? So every year when this great country of ours, I hate that word, great country. Every year when this great country of ours celebrates Memorial Day, we try to raise with people. Did you ever ask yourself why they celebrate every war when they celebrate Memorial Day and never mention the Civil War? Most people can't tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because it was us, our ancestors, started by black women, who started the day to celebrate. Because celebrating Memorial Day means what? We got to talk about who originated it. They don't want to do that, right? Critical theory. We don't want to do that. And of course, it means it forces discussion on what? The Civil War. Oh, no, we don't want to talk about the Civil War. We don't want to talk about that. So they don't. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of how vicious this revisionist history is. Robert E. Lee captured by white troops. Juneteenth started as a result of white generals saying, I'm here to tell y'all don't know it, but 2.5 years ago, the message, no. Memorial Day started by white, That's just 3 examples. That's just 3. So in conclusion, the big lie did not start January 6th. The big lie started in 1619. And it's been continued a million times over.